Welcome. My name is Julie Zink. I am a professor of lawyering skills at the University of Dayton School of Law, where I've taught legal research and writing, as well as a host of intellectual property courses for the past 15 years. Last year, I was appointed to become Dayton Law's inaugural Assistant Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Today, I'll be speaking to you about developing cultural competency and creating inclusive environments. Many of us grow up and move through life in a bubble, surrounded by people who look like us, worship the way we do, and speak in the same language. When we live our life in these bubbles, we are not likely to understand others' experiences. This is even easier to do when we are privileged by our race, sex, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, and/or able bodies. If you are lucky, someone or something will come along and pop that bubble. You will start noticing things, whether it be hearing inappropriate language used to refer to persons of color, seeing the negative change in demeanor when someone from an out group approaches, trying to help a wheelchair-bound person into a building, seeing implicit bias play a role in hiring decisions, witnessing an equally qualified woman receive a lower raise than a male counterpart, hearing of hate crimes that happen to homosexual or transitioning individuals, and/or observing microaggressions in your day-to-day life. These experiences will help you to become aware of intolerance and inequities. That initial journey to awareness is step one. Your eyes are now open, and you are paying attention. Perhaps, as you witness these events, you realized how hard it would be to be the one excluded or shunned. You may have imagined a loved one experiencing such treatment. At this point, you have come to a crossroads. You must decide whether to look away and continue on your merry, privileged way, only recognizing inequalities when they impact you or your loved ones, or you can allow that recognition to spur you on to change, beginning with yourself. That brings us to step 2, development of cultural competency. Thereafter, we'll discuss step 3, taking action and creating an inclusive environment. We only know what we know, and even then, our experiences are often unique to ourselves. However, we can begin to learn more about others' stories by educating and assessing ourselves. Start with reading books and articles, watching movies, documentaries or docuseries, taking Harvard's implicit association test. Go to trainings and workshops, take classes, do research. Go to community events. Spend time getting to know people with different experiences and perspectives. Engage with allies. This self-education and self-assessment should never stop. Learning about instances of discrimination and inequality changes your worldview. You see the ugliness and you can no longer look away. That knowledge will motivate you. It will provide ideas about possible steps you might be able to take to improve things, on both a personal level and on a larger level. That brings us to step 3, creating an inclusive environment in our organizations and communities. What can we do to create an inclusive environment? First, don't hide who you are. This is especially important for people of various minority groups. While putting yourself out there is not easy, vulnerability offers connection. Connection can build relationships, and relationships can break down stereotypes. I'm going to cover each of these topics in subsequent slides, but I thought it would be helpful to lay them out here too. I'm sure there are many other ways to create an inclusive environment, but these are some of the ways that have worked at Dayton Law. Statements from the leadership set the tone and can be referenced when trying to leverage change. Statements of support are good, but they need to be accompanied by real action. If the university says that it wants to become anti-racist, then it must take clear steps. Being transparent as to advances and setbacks is important too. One way to make real change is to create a task force or committee and/or appoint a leader in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. 5 years ago, Dayton Law created a Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, which later became a full-fledged committee that includes faculty, staff, and students. Having a diverse group of people working together makes things seem less overwhelming, offers differing perspectives, and helps spread both the work and the word around. But financial support is also key. A year ago, Dayton Law invested in hiring its first assistant dean for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Initially, that position was designed to be for 9 months, but that was extended to 12 months. A diversity budget, although modest, was also provided to pay speaker fees, purchase artwork, and support other initiatives. In the past 5 years, our incoming classes have also changed dramatically, moving from approximately 10% students of color to approximately 30% students of color. As you can imagine, having a critical mass has also changed the climate in a positive way. Of course, our admissions office is largely responsible for this increase, but the administration and the university's support in providing financial scholarships certainly aided this effort. It has also helped to have student and alumni representatives encouraging other students of color to consider applying to our institution. Finally, the school's website and social media accounts provide opportunities to showcase the work being done at Dayton Law. There is no one solution to improving diversity, but these are some of the strategies that have worked for us. While increasing numbers of diverse students is important, it is even more critical to ensure that those students feel welcome and supported. That sense of belonging will transition into student success and bar passage, as well as securing of employment. And those results will enhance the school's reputation, encouraging more applicants of color to consider matriculating. Much improvement still needs to be made with regard to faculty composition. However, 5 years ago, we only had one full-time faculty member of color in the building. With retirements, several new teaching positions opened up. In this regard, we used several strategies to diversify the applicant pool and diminish bias from the hiring process. First, we hired an outside consultant to encourage diverse candidates to apply. Now those duties are under my purview. We added qualifications that signaled our desires to diversify the faculty and create a climate of inclusivity. We posted job descriptions in places where diverse candidates would actually see them, and we made sure that those making hiring decisions received implicit bias training. Those strategies have led to the hiring of 2 tenured professors of color and 2 tenure-track professors of color. We also hired 3 visiting professors of color and 6 adjunct professors of color. Even if those professors do not ultimately receive permanent offers from Dayton Law, they are acting as role models and mentors for our students. And they are also building resumes that may one day assist them in becoming full-time professors, should they so choose to pursue that path. After reading through our 2015 Law School Survey of Student Engagement, and listening to several students and graduates, I discovered that many of our students were frustrated by the lack of discussion on important present-day legal issues. They complained that several professors were not discussing current events or hot-button issues because they feared losing control of the classroom. To encourage and better equip our professors to have these difficult conversations, we arranged several training sessions, offering them free lunch to attend. These trainings were an investment by the administration, which not only paid for the food and drinks, but provided a stipend and mileage reimbursement for the speakers. While luring attendees with a free lunch can be helpful, it is also important to make it clear that the organization is committed to fostering an environment that supports the success and inclusion of those from historically marginalized and underrepresented groups. Employees will then understand that this is an important issue that should not be ignored. One way to do that is to consider tying attendance at such functions to annual evaluations. The question on screen is from our faculty annual evaluation form. The faculty member's response to this question is one of the metrics considered when determining how much of a raise, if any, that faculty member will receive the following year. This outward sign from the administration reinforced the school's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. It let faculty members know that such issues were important and should not be ignored. Providing examples of how faculty members could accomplish these goals was also helpful. Supporting affinity groups is critical. In this regard, our administration made sure to advertise and support any programs put on by various affinity groups. And the best way to support our students is to actually show up and listen. I'm pleased to say that many of our faculty and staff do so. We wanted to set the tone early with training during orientation week. Those sessions have been led by a mixture of outside and in-house diversity specialists. This year, I took it over, so I'm going to focus on the layout of the sessions I lead. First, I thought it was important to explain to the students why they were hearing about diversity, equity, and inclusion in law school orientation. So I tied it to the oath of professionalism they took the first day of orientation, as well as the university student standards and the law school honor code. Then I discussed how the ABA and state bar rules apply. Finally, I provided them with some stark statistics that demonstrate how the legal system does not work for the same for marginalized individuals, people of color, or poor people. Once the students realized why we were discussing this topic, I tried to provide them with tips on how to educate themselves. I also gave them links to various resources, training opportunities, and groups of interest. Finally, we engaged in small group discussions about the statistics, students' own experiences, and what they hope to do in practice, among other things. I end with information on our various mentoring programs, which I will discuss further later in the presentation. Dayton Law has also put together programs for the entire law school community. These events provided opportunities to touch on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues throughout the academic year, rather than just providing a once-a-year check-the-box type of coverage. They again demonstrated the school's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and hopefully helped some in attendance to gain awareness and recognition of discrimination and inequality, such that they too would begin their self-education and self-assessment on the road to cultural competency. While all of the events have been worthwhile, the two that stand out most in my mind in terms of both education and community building are the Human Race Theater's Thurgood play in our courtroom and the movie theater rental for Just Mercy. Students often have the best ideas for accomplishing these goals. They just need the financial and administrative support to accomplish them. In terms of the curriculum, Dayton Law offers classes such as Race and Racism in American Law that directly address diversity, equity, and inclusivity issues, and that most certainly do not duck hot-button issues. That way, students with an interest in such areas have an opportunity to dig deeper into those issues outside of the general bar exam courses. Not surprisingly, these courses are often packed with students wanting to enhance their knowledge and looking for ways to make a positive difference. But we cannot rely on these classes to educate students on issues of racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, and the law. Rather, all courses should address these issues where and when they arise. Meanwhile, others, including me, have found ways to integrate issues of cultural competency into our courses. For example, 3 years ago, my legal writing colleagues and I assigned Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy novel to the entering first-year class. We amended our syllabi to include learning objectives such as exhibiting and continuing to develop cultural competency, professionalism, and ethics. More specifically, to increase their awareness, content knowledge, cognitive sophistication, and empathic understanding of the complex ways individuals interact within systems and institutions. Throughout the course of the semester, we had the students take quizzes on the material. We incorporated the criminal law subject matter into the research and writing assignments, and we invited speakers to come in and talk with the students about their work in the criminal law system. The next slide will cover student comments about the use of Just Mercy in our class, but suffice it to say it was positive. Thus, my colleagues and I did the same thing with Matthew Desmond's Evicted about poverty and housing, and Kenyon Schragg's Asylum Denied about immigration. By far and away, the most prevalent comment from students was shock that the legal system was not working for many Americans. They discovered that there was a whole host of things that they did not know, but would need to know to be good practitioners. I was very pleased to discover that nearly all of the students' eyes were now open. They recognized the power they would wield as lawyers, and they wanted to be a force for positive change. The students had similar reactions reading Evicted and Asylum Denied, beginning with shock and transitioning from motivation to change. Other faculty have taken a bit more subtle approach. They have attempted to create a sense of belonging by incorporating more ethnically diverse names or images in their course materials, taking care not to place such characters in the position of the bad actor. Others take a few moments to touch on and discuss issues of discrimination and inequity within the subject matter area. For example, in criminal law, the class may discuss racial disparities in arrests and sentencing. In torts, they may discuss gender and racial inequalities and compensatory damages. In property, they may discuss the history of redlining and ongoing housing and rental discrimination. These professors, thanks in part to the training they received, do not duck hot-button issues, but instead engage in a respectful dialogue with their students. One of my African American law students once told me how inspiring it was to see someone who looked like her doing what she wanted to do. That statement resonated with me, and it encouraged me to look around our law school and notice how many images of white men were visible, but how few images of women or persons of color were displayed. So we work with the administration to reevaluate current art, like the Norman Rockwell print above, and to purchase and display more inclusive art, like the portraits of Thurgood Marshall and the U.S. Supreme Court, through the law school in order to better reflect the diversity of our student body. We also added a You Belong Here banner in our atrium and pro-diversity posters throughout the school, as well as providing affinity groups with funds to update their billboards. My advice on this front is to look at your surroundings and make sure that they are welcome for everyone, not just majority populations. Ask yourself, is the diversity of your institution reflected in the images that are displayed on your walls, website, and advertising? In terms of our LGBTQ+ students, we wanted to help them feel a sense of belonging, which is not always easy to accomplish at a Catholic institution. We opened up a single occupancy restroom. We posted ally posters throughout the building and worked with several students to reestablish the Lambda Legal Affinity Group. The administration also posted ally training announcements in its weekly newsletters to the entire student body. Keeping in mind the words of the student I mentioned earlier, Dayton Law worked with the local bar association and the affinity groups within the law school to develop a practitioner-student mentoring program. All interested second and third year members of the Black Law Student Association, the Asian Law Student Association, and the Hispanic Law Student Association were paired with local practitioners who would help guide them through law school, internships, the bar exam, and ultimately law practice. These practitioners of color were excited to be involved, often referencing mentors who had helped them, or stating that they wished they could have had someone to help them navigate their own legal education and careers. And sometimes, mentors opened doors for students who didn't even know those doors existed. Because examples are important, we also invited a variety of local practitioners, many of whom were women and persons of color, to come in and speak with the students throughout the academic year. These role models shared their journeys with the students and described what they do on a day-to-day basis. Putting yourself out there isn't easy, but vulnerability often offers connection. Connection can build relationships, and relationships can break down stereotypes. Finally, be an ally and find allies. Having a diverse group of people working towards similar goals makes things seem less overwhelming, offers diverse perspectives, and helps spread both the work and the word around. We were lucky enough to be able to work with 2 local organizations that support diversity, equity, and inclusivity initiatives, the Dayton Bar Association's Diversity Section and the Greater Dayton Area Diversity and Inclusion Roundtable. Through these organizations, we were able to help create more training programs, clerkship opportunities, and mentoring relationships for our student body. We continue to find ways to work together and support each other. That takes us through the 3 steps I outlined at the beginning of this program. We've come full circle, but by no means are we finished, because for each person who moves through the steps, they introduce others to those same steps. It's a ripple effect, and that ripple will become a wave. In terms of Dayton law, I'm happy to say that there has been a significant change in the school's climate since that task force was formed 5 years ago. Of course, there's still much more work to be done. The good news is that we have discovered some strategies that seem to work for us. Hopefully, some of these strategies will work for you too. One final note. It is easy to get overwhelmed and frustrated, and even think about giving up. For every 2 steps forward, there is usually a step back, and that can be disheartening. But take heart. Those little steps do add up. Just keep moving forward, slow and steady. What you do does make a difference. Thank you.